All right, we're going. Yeah, What's up, Mike?
What's up?
My name's Sean Patty. If you're tuning into my show, you've probably seen my name a couple times. This is the Music in Our World podcast. I'm joined by Amadeus. Alex Michalis here. Talk about some music, some other stuff. What's going on, man?
All right, so I can jump in.
Yeah, you can jump in. It's all you.
Man. Hey.
Short sign on.
Well, it's a wonderful day, and it's a great time to be here. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a good time to sit down and talk with my boy John Patty.
All right. There's no like structure, you know. It's like I think one of the things I usually start with is how did you get started in music? Were you in band? Did you do choir? Were you in a rock band? That kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. So I never did band. I never did choir in middle school. In fact, they had this third option they had just invented where you do like a medley of electives where you learn a little music, you learn a little theater, home economics, learn how to sew and make an Orange Julius. Yeah, so I mean, I did that. So I didn't go this traditional route of doing a brass instrument, or they said I could have done trombone, and they said I had nice lips, and that guy's in prison now. So, but anyway,
wasn't even the band director.
Yeah. So, but anyway, as far as like actually getting started, I listen to metal since. Sixth grade, I guess. Yeah, I got started with Metallica and the Black Album, and then evolved more into like System of a Down. It gets a little bit crazier. Avenged Sevenfold. Then you start getting into like As I Lay Dying, where it's just screaming. Job for a Cowboy, just straight up death metal at that point.
Sure.
But it was about 10th grade, I think, where I actually joined a band as a vocalist. A local deathcore band. We never played a first show or anything, but we practiced, had a couple songs together, and we broke up before we could play that first gig. But with what I had brought to the table already, it was still very exciting. I felt like it shouldn't have died there, and there was much more that I could do. So a lot of my ideas I just kind of kept with me, and then it wasn't until maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, that I wanted to buckle down. I had all these riffs that I had wrote over the years, and drum parts, bass parts, things that I wanted to say in lyrics. All these had really built up, and it's like, okay, let's buckle down and actually put some structure to it. Let's make these into songs. So yeah, that's how I got to making my own music, playing all the instruments, doing the vocals, and writing a full-length album front to back. So yeah, that's sort of the humble beginnings there, and where I am now.
That's rad, man. I do want to talk a little bit more about the record too, because obviously, like, it's. When I was listening to it, I was like, "Whoa!" Like, you did all the parts. Like, that's impressive because as coming from a drummer, I was like, "Okay, there's some double bass in there." That's not territory I go into often, but also like a casual drummer, even or someone who's not like a full-time drummer. A lot of the time, that's not something they go into. But it was like right on. This is a done thing. And I do want to get to the record, but I am curious because a lot of times I felt a little bit pigeonholed when I was coming up through like a band program, and so. For someone to have a lasting interest in music, that's really cool. But I'm curious, what were those other? You said you got to do like a medley of electives. What were the other things you did in there?
Oh, in what, that middle school?
Yeah, back in school. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I did those electives. What else? I hung out with stoners. Did not partake, but I don't know. I just kind of was down to earth with them. As far as, I don't know, I just listened to a lot of music. I didn't do too much with like after school activities really until it came to applying for college.
Yeah.
They needed those activities. So, really what I did in my free time was, I had my guitar, my bass, an electronic drum set, and any free time I would, doodle on that a little bit, maybe make something, or like a little 15-second, 30-second bit, and just internalize it, or like record it like on an MP3 player, and just like do this little bit, and then just keep it. But yeah, other than that, I didn't do too much. I was a pretty good, kid in school, even with the band. And the funny thing about that is, I thought I was gonna be a part of this band. We were gonna get signed, and we're gonna tour the world and all that. I think a lot of people have that, and for us to break up before our first show, really, really humbled me. But at the same time, I was still like doing well in school, showing up every day at above level classes, not trying to stunt or anything, but just keep showing up, make the grades, and I had grades good enough to go to college and graduate there. So I don't know if I answered the question.
It's because the thing is, sometimes people also are like inspired by, I also took an art class, but it really stuck with me, even if they're not an art major. But it's kind of no matter what you do. I think if the music bug gets you, that's what you do, and the other stuff is like, I took a class. But let's talk maybe about the I guess leading up to the record, when you were in the band, is that stuff that you wrote that y'all played, or was it a kind of a group effort? Yeah,
it was a group effort, but I did write a bit, even some of the guitar parts, some of the drum parts. I was like, hey, try this, and the drummer gets up, and I'm like, do it like this, and okay. And same with the guitars too, and it was pretty hands-on effort, but. With that, just falling flat and still having the ideas, I think that's really what stuck with me, and really gave me the urge to finish and do something on my own. Granted, it took 10 years after that, but I mean, it was really a life goal at that point to put out this record where you did 100% of everything on it. And put that stamp on it that this is yours, no matter how successful it was either. Right. And it wasn't even about like if people grabbed it and blowing up or going viral or anything like that. Just the fact that I can say that I did this project, I finished it and put it out. It's published.
Yeah. When I you told me about it, and I logged on Spotify, and I was like, dude, this is the coolest. That background photo, and it just means something, man, to have that completed project. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. Did you have you said you've kind of been working through these riffs and had them in your head. Was there something specific you were trying to say, or is it just an all-encompassing thing?
Well, so as far as the theme of the album, it's Dante's Inferno, which I hadn't seen any band do a full concept album on that. So song by song, you have your intro, and then you have the 9 Circles of Hell after that. So a 10-song album. So I clung on to that as far as like lyrical themes go, and really all riffs and drum parts, all that really followed with it. So I had those prior to, and then you have your inspiration for what you're gonna do lyrically there. So other than that, I'm not sure what I would have talked about in my music. I could talk about my own life, or I could talk about society or what's going on right now. There's a few ideas, but at that point in time, I really wanted to do that concept album.
Cool. And I think, it feels very cohesive. Like, it's definitely something. But there's always, to me, there's like, I was doing this, but it's actually an allegory for this. But so that makes total sense. And something like that, I think, definitely sticks with you until you can realize the idea, for sure. Well, how about, did you How did you actually go about recording it? Did you have all of your own stuff, or did you go to a studio? Or
Yeah, this is the fun part about it, I guess, is to record all those little bits, those little 15-second bits. I was using my phone for all that. I had an iPhone, and I would get this, riff idea in my head, and then I was like, oh, okay, pull the phone out, make sure it's facing towards you, so you know where your fingers are on the guitar. Because I used to just put it face down and play it, and then I listen back. Oh man, that sounded good. Wait, how did I do that?
Yep.
So, just having to do some reverse math. But anyway, having it face towards me, do 15 seconds or 30 seconds, and if you saw my phone, the gallery was just a cluster all the way down. You just keep scrolling and scrolling. It's like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And then as time went on, I'm starting to put these together. So your 15 seconds become 45 seconds, a minute and a half, and then you start having full-on songs from there. But I even use the GarageBand app within the iPhone and placed the phone next to my guitar amp and would record the full song, and after that, I do it on guitar, and then after that I do maybe the second round of guitar, and then I do the drums within the app, where I'm actually tapping on it, or just keep the beat or something like that. I had my own electronic drum set, so I knew what where I was going to deviate and do drum fills from there. And then screaming into my phone too, which is what I do during traffic already. So, so that's how I guess put it all together prior to going into the studio, how it was going to be structured and how everything fits in. I guess on time. Though as a drummer, I'm not the best, but it's just making a heavy album was really the intent there.
That's cool. I do a lot of nuts and bolts stuff. I consider myself, I guess, a tech person. So, it's super cool. And I've got a blog post. By the time this episode comes out, will probably already be out. That just kind of talks about my gear and everything. I've got mostly a mobile setup. I record and do a lot of stuff mobile devices as well. I've got an iPad and an iPhone, and I try to do similar stuff. But that was all the ideas coming together, and then you actually went to a studio to record.
Yeah. I went to 360 Recording Studios here in Houston, off of Bissonnet Street. Rough side of town.
Yep.
They gave me a pretty good rate on it, especially as a one-man band. I had a budget in my head. I was like, okay, the most I'll spend is $5,000, and they came at me with the quote, and it was, much less than that. So
right on.
I was like, okay, I can do this. It was about, a paycheck's worth of, after all was said and done, even with the Spotify and the publishing and all that, it was about $1,500. So for the full length, so really buckled down, got billed by the hours, but was pretty structured as to having everything together when you go in, and knowing what you're going to do, and even when we were in the studio, they had the in-house drum set, and the way they were going to try and do it was okay, record your guitar first on the first song, now do your drums on that first song, and then do the bass on the first song, then do the vocals. And hold on. How about while we have the guitar tuned and all that, let's lay down all the guitar for all the tracks for the full album. And that was a couple sessions, 2.5 sessions. And then did drums, which was one full session in the beginning of one other. And then did bass after that, which followed suit with the drums. Not drums, but the guitar. It just followed through with that as a rhythm piece, and then the vocals over everything else. Those were their own pretty much individual sessions there, rather than having to set up each individual thing for, oh man, I was going to be there forever. I was like,
yeah,
because if you go over your hours, then it's like prorated after that, and I think at that point we would have been creeping up towards $3,000.
Yeah, that would greatly increase that.
Yeah. So that's how I did it, and really had it all together, and knowing what I was going to do, rather than following that and Is there a ghost in here?
Oh. There's lots of ghosts in here, but this is...
I think that's another story.
I mean, yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Do I believe in ghosts? I don't know. I think so.
Yeah.
I try to stay open to all of the ideas that could be, when I was recording with Zero Detail at Sugar Hill, similar part of town, that place is definitely haunted.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
Just
bad vibes.
I don't know. Because I don't. If I'm thinking, okay, there's a ghost, and I don't know that that's bad vibes.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of guy. I'm just standing in a corner and be like, "There's a ghost here. What's up, man?" He's like, "You want to do an episode? Like, let's talk."
Yeah.
But no, just weird stuff like. Flickering lights is always a thing. I'm like, okay, somebody's like, something's in here. But I don't know. I've always thought that's a fascinating idea.
Oh yeah.
But I do. We'll come back to ghosts.
Okay.
Yeah. That's like,
it's one other thing.
But I wanted to. I definitely want to have due diligence because recording an album all by yourself is a huge thing, and there's the practical parts of it. You obviously have to have an idea and sort of write it out. But I just in general, what do you think? What are the pros and cons of seeing an album from writing a first note, taking that first iPhone voice memo all the way to distributing it and having it up on Spotify? Just what are the good things? What are the best parts about it? And what do you think are some things that presented unique challenges to that?
That's a really good question, because working with a band, you have the creative input of like 4 other people and your own, and then sometimes you can get overridden too. A thing with that first band, we had songs written, and then they just started slowing them down. There was this new genre coming through where like breakdowns were just slowed way down, and it was like heavy. But then they started doing that with the music we wrote and had planned for this show, and I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So that's where you clash there. The pro would be the creative input is all yours. I guess that's a con too, because you can hit writer's block very frequently, and there's just no inspiration. And then there's some times where you have a really good night and you record a lot of bits right then and there. But a con would be having to set up the phone and you play your one riff and then you try to play the drums to it, or you're trying to match everything all together by yourself rather than having a band that jams with you and you have it all there. It would have definitely been a quicker process if it was a full band effort, but at the same time the creativity would have been compromised there.
Did you send any like scratches or rough ideas to anyone and bounce them off people, or did you just kind of keep everything in house?
I just did it. Yeah. I kept it all with me. Yeah, it wasn't until I had actually started recording at the studio and they sent me the rough tracks back that I was showing it to my coworker or someone else, and just like, hey, what do you think of that? This is drums and guitar, no vocals, no bass. How does it sound so far? And they're like, oh, it's pretty good. Maybe they didn't want to hurt my feelings or anything, but it's like, I guess it's good. Well, this is the way it's going to be anyway. So
I know how that is too. Just trying to spend some time in the studio, but but that's cool. And I always feel, I think one of the, as I think about it, because I've thought about recording my own album. I being in a different genre, I think it's because to me, being a sort of on the classical and even a lot of times academic side of music, I'm like, if I show somebody something, I always have in my mind, it's not only the performance aspect of it, like the execution, but since a lot of people I know are in this like academic world, it's going to be like, oh, I don't like your idea. Mm-hmm. It could even be like, oh yeah, you performed it well, or the performers performed it well, but I don't like the idea. Mm-hmm. I think the idea sucks. I'm like, that's a vulnerability I feel, and often keeps me from sharing stuff. Yeah.
Really? Oh man. So, what would you would do guitar and all that, or you would do the full instrument setup, and the genre would be...
That's another thing. It's like with my writing, songs, quote unquote, with lyrics, I feel entrenched in so many different genres. I don't know that I could stick to a genre. That's another thing that's keeping me from doing it. Is I want to do a rock song, and then I want to do a cheesy like ballad, and then I want to do a singer-songwriter, and then I want to do a jazz chart. And so that's, and again, if I write a jazz chart and send that to one of my jazz people, I don't like the idea. I don't like any of your chords. And I know that's a vulnerability, but I've been composing and writing music for a long time. But as far as like recording it and performing it, because if I give it to someone else, or if I sell an arrangement or something, that's like they do what they want with it. They thought enough of it to give me money for it, and that's, my hands are off.
Right. Yeah.
But holding things like that a little closer to the chest, and then trying to like, does this suck? Should I continue doing? Should I be a musician still?
Yeah,
I'm always like that.
Well, I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you also can't please everyone. Too. Yeah, there's always going to be people that have their 2 cents, especially if your network is artists. The first thing they want to do is critique, or like, I didn't like something very small. But at the end of the day, what you are putting out is 100% you, and I think there's something to stand behind there, and there's a lot of pride in that. It sounds exciting for sure. I've had that inkling of an idea where it's like, maybe I can explore other genres where I had an album and every song was a different genre. Yeah. You still do everything yourself, but like, okay, I can do a metal song or a thrash metal song, black metal, but you actually like do a country song, do an emo song, like an emo I want to cry my eyes out song, something like that. That's a very good idea, and I think even not having a genre nailed down shouldn't hold you back. Yeah.
We'll see, and I'm also one of those people that. I've done solos. I studied as a singer in college, and I was in high school percussion, and we had to play solos. And I've always felt more at home in a band setting. Whether or not I'm playing my music, or I always enjoyed sort of the ensemble thing as a performer. So I would likely have everybody I know. If I record an album, everybody I know would be on it, just to play something or just to be involved or. So I don't know. We'll see. But the whole idea of when because I think I heard you had a record out, and I was like, okay, this dude's in a band. That's normally what happens. And then Taylor was telling me, he's like, yeah, he did it all himself. I'm like, dude, what? That's so cool. And I'll probably think of a million questions afterwards to ask about it. Just of course. The philosophy behind it, I think, is really fascinating, because it is so much work. I mean, we're finishing up the Zero Detail record, and by the time this comes out, it may or may not be done. I mean, there's 5 of us working on that. I think me and Alex went up there in April and laid down the rhythm tracks, and we're still working on it.
April, wow.
Yeah. So. But that's the pros and cons of it. I think I would like having a little bit more control just over if nothing else, the timeline. Because we finish this stuff, and I'm like, man, I want to release it. We want to release a single this day, and then this day, and then by November or January or whatever, we've got the whole record out. And I'm like, I just want to do it all at once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
drop it like Beyonce.
That's how I think I would want to do it, just because I don't know. I think the way I want to do it is it's more effective if it kind of all goes out at once.
Mm-hmm.
Was yours just kind of a one and done thing?
Yeah. Okay, so I had put out a YouTube video, where it's just it's the album art and it's the song, and I did that for one song for No Dawn, and then that was found on a metal Reddit page. Like, this guy did it all himself, so like views jumped from like 20 to like 1,000 overnight. So that was pretty cool. And you also get the bits of like, oh, that's cool that he did it, and like, oh my god, he sucks. You know? This is the worst. Tell your friend that, you know, this thing he worked on for the last 10 years is utter shit. You know, and I'm like, oh well, you know, you can't please everyone,
right?
You know, but to be seen still, you know, has an impact, and I got some new followers from that as well. But as far as like releasing everything, like that all went out, aside from that one YouTube video, that all went out at once on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. I'm a Topic band,
sure.
All those platforms. It went out January 2018 in one fell swoop. Mm-hmm.
Right on. Do you keep up with analytics or sales or spins or whatever? Was that a goal for you to have a lot of spins, or you just wanted to do it?
I mean, I really just wanted to do it. Of course, whenever it drops, you've got your big spike of all the people listening to it at once, mm-hmm. and that's as high as it ever got, really.
Right.
But even to this day, like people are still finding it on Bandcamp, mm-hmm. and I'll check every once in a blue moon, really, and see that 3 people listened to it in the last week. I was like, oh wow. Y'all still listening to this? People aren't really much, buyers of music anymore, and I like, that's just the way it's going. So it's all in streams, whether they happen or not. For me, I'm just one guy. That is another con of it, is like you don't have 5 people that can promote it.
Right.
It's just you. Just the fact that it's out there is, that's checking off the life goal, mm-hmm. for me.
Well, is it something you'd ever want to do again, or follow up, or supplement, or?
I've been talking to people about it. Funny thing. A guy that I used to work with, we worked at this company. I worked there for 3 years, and he worked there for 2. And there's just this emotional cycle of whenever you started at the company, the middle, and then whenever you left the company. Mm-hmm. We're both not there anymore. We both left on our own accord. But I'll jump into it a little bit, because this is a big what if, what if we get the concept together, we nail everything down. We could, go into the studio and do an EP. Again, I would do all the instruments, and mm-hmm. he just had some of the ideas, okay. Lyrically, or as far as the ideas go. But anyway, we worked for a drug testing lab, and not for employment, but for like doctors' offices. Mm-hmm. And we came in at a time where the opioid epidemic was at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. I started there, and then 2 days later, Prince died from his fentanyl overdose. No, it's like, well, this is why we're here. We're here to combat the opioid epidemic. You want to, as a doctor, like drug test your patients before you prescribe something that could cross-react and kill that person.
Right.
Because if you don't know that this person's already on Xanax and just this cocktail of stuff already, and you give them hydrocodone, you push them over the edge and they die.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. Just doctors are out of sight, out of mind. It's not my business kind of thing. I don't want to, compromise trust. But anyway, as far as like, we go, we're like, okay, we're making a positive impact on the community in doing this. And then just as time went on, it wasn't about that. It was about money. Of course, you have to be profitable as a lab, but the way they were doing it was like healthcare loopholes where physicians could invest in your startup, but to invest, they were also sending samples to you. Yeah. I don't know if this violates an NDA or whatever, but it's pretty much compromising the quality of healthcare because they're investing and then they're getting money back on a monthly basis,
Mm-hmm.
and they're investing a very small amount to get in, and then paid fivefold every month after that just to send it to us.
Yeah.
So that's where it shifts, and it's like, you weren't here to make a positive impact at all. You saw other labs were doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted to jump in on this cash cow, and now insurance companies are buckling down. They know what's going on, and these labs are being shut down. They're being audited. If an audit is happening from an insurance company, I know this is boring stuff, they cut off all the funds. How do you make money? So they just siphon all that off, and like, hope you can breathe after that. So they've laid off a ton of people. And even while we were there, the last Christmas party, the president of the company said, onward to 2019, have a wonderful Christmas, and we're doing great things. And then like 5 people got laid off the next week. They couldn't even make it to 2019.
Yeah.
But essentially, the whole concept of that is just the journey of, having hope and then realizing what's happening. You're still there, so you're like stuck in a rut, anger, depression. Mashing this all into like maybe a 4 or 5 song EP is an idea, but he's all over the place. I'm like, if you can buckle down, like, I'll do it. I'll write the music for it. But he has a lot of ideas. And then there's the other idea of, like I had said earlier, if I did just this genre mashup, and I did.
Yeah.
one genre. I don't know if you do like an EP or like. Or a full length. I don't know how many genres I could do, but that would be a just for fun kind of thing if I could do that. But that's just a what if. I'm not committing to it.
No,
fully.
There's no pressure here. I just another thing I always think about is what's next. I finish a big project or a big composition. I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Which I pretty much always try to have a couple irons in the fire so that I minimize that time of just kind of idle. Like, oh, what do I do? Because then I don't know. Sometimes good stuff comes from that, but that I always am also thinking about, especially with doing a podcast, doing videos. It's really hard to make content. It's hard to write songs. It's hard to record a podcast episode if you're not also living a life that's like experiencing some stuff. Trying to create something from living a life that's not even worth commenting on. That sounds harsh, but I mean, like, there are things that, like, working in healthcare. I worked in the tech industry, like I said, and that there were things that happened that to me are remarkable, things that are worth commenting on. I would be inspired daily. I think you have to be looking for it too. But if you're just in this place, or you've just resigned, like, oh, I'm just going to work at such and such job and not care about what happens. I'm like, I feel like that would be really hard to provide commentary on or provide art on, unless it's something super intrinsic. And everybody, I think everybody has something intrinsic, but it definitely helps to live a life worth commenting on.
I agree. Yeah, and I mean, what are you doing if nothing excites you? About what you do, you're just there. And I don't know, lacking inspiration. There for the paycheck.
Yeah, I hope I never get to that point. Thankfully, being in sort of the freelance area, I don't really get that luxury anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the same thing too. Yeah, so I mean, I'm with an O-ring company. Okay, what's an O-ring? Not blowing smoke O-rings. I don't even know. But it's like little small pieces of rubber that seal. I don't know. It's probably in your phone or it's in your AC. Or just like heavy duty industrial equipment. This is the most boring thing I've ever had to market in my life. So I do marketing. I've been doing that for the last 4 years, especially even in healthcare too. Like, urine drug testing. How do you like dress this up? It's like something that's just very necessary. And same with like O-rings and equipment. It's like it's just a piece of rubber.
Yeah.
You can get it from anywhere. So it's pretty mundane stuff. But as far as like breaking out of that, I also do freelance, and I've thankfully gotten to the point where companies are finding me instead of me having to do proposals. I find companies in like Saudi Arabia. Well, actually, they find me, and they're like a scooter company, and those Lime and Bird things in like Austin. They're doing that in Saudi Arabia, and they're like, how do we make this market this towards youngsters or something like that. I'm like, I'm not young myself, but here's some taglines for you. Same with like, I don't know, like a distillery needed some spirits named. So those, yeah. You know, whenever you go to like a craft brewery, they have some crazy name for an IPA or whatever. Yeah, of course. And yeah. So anyway, the bottom line is like, you can be creative in different, I don't know, genres of work. How do you say it? Industries? Mm-hmm. Sorry, creative for other industries as a break from what you do every day. Because I feel like I would go crazy if I didn't have some other challenge outside of that, and marketing something else.
For sure. Where do you find inspiration for? I mean, obviously there's like at your old job, if you've had some things kicking around from who knows where, when you first start getting those ideas. But do you have a source of like daily or maybe even like weekly inspiration where like, oh man, this is, even if it never goes anywhere, I'm just like inspired to have this thought or inspired to create in a day-to-day kind of thing?
I do have a notes app, and I don't know if just something strikes me or if I, come up with something, I'll write it down. I'm like, don't let this go away in case you go back into the studio and do something. Like, keep this with you. This is some really good stuff, and could really hit, and could be therapeutic too. To actually like say it, and like put it out there. So yeah, I mean, there's things in like daily life. I mean, something that happened recently was a breakup, actually. So we dated for a year, and just as that was on the decline, I thought of lyrics. I don't know, that sounded yeah.
that anyway, sounds like all of music.
Yeah. It is. It's like, oh, this is an inspiration, is just this breakup for, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that is right. So I was like, I thought of some things, and I was like, write this down in case you need to say it later. So yeah, I do have a notes app for that, for like really sad stuff, maybe some like angry fuck you stuff. Yeah, it's explicit now.
Oh, that's all right. I get that E-tag on there.
So there's a variety of, well, I guess the variety is really, it's either sad or it's angry. for I guess, because I'm probably gonna do metal again.
Sure.
But yeah, it's, I do have something, and it, day to day stuff will draw some inspiration and get a line here and there.
Do you? I asked this question. I know I'm going to end up sort of embarrassing myself because my answer is no. But do you get into? I mean, I guess I'll frame it this way. A lot of the people that I listen to talk a lot about poetry and film and that sort of thing, and reading just prose or fiction. I do not make the time that I know that I should. I enjoy poetry. I have a harder time getting into film or reading, but have you read anything, or do you read anything frequently that kind of inspires you, or just do you do due diligence to reading, or how do you kind of approach that?
That's a good question. I mean, I've dedicated more time to like actually watching movies now, and when I really didn't before, and I would just be caught up in my own stuff, or like I wouldn't want to even dedicate the time, 2 hours of time literally, to watch a movie. So I've been doing that as like sort of a due diligence as far as reading goes. Like the last thing I did was it was the Dante's Inferno bit, but like to go back and like keep reading over the same stuff over and over and over again, to make sure what I was saying was like accurate.
Right.
In that album. That was the last book, really. I read a lot of, I mean, just as a marketing guy already, I read a lot of blogs, but I don't think I draw much inspiration as far as art goes from there. It's just, how do you make your Google ads better?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't get too much from that. But yeah, I've definitely been buckling down and, dedicating time to like watching series now. Like I finally, I watched Stranger Things, for like, and I've watched all 3 seasons, but, all these series have come and gone, and they're like, have you checked out Breaking Bad yet? And I'm like, oh no, but I'm going to. Yeah. And I've said this for the last 7 years, like Walking Dead, oh, no, but sounds like a damn good show.
Yeah.
and how many years has that been running? I've not watched a single episode. Game of Thrones is another one, but I also heard that people were not very enthused with the finale and how they wrapped it all up. But, at the same time, there's still like some inspiration that you can draw from that. I watched It Part 1 and 2. You know, those were very good films, and maybe something could come out of that. But I don't know. To experience more art is definitely what I'm striving to do, and have been doing recently, but more so into the future. Yeah,
that's what it is, and I had it in my mind for last 7 years, at least, that it was just because people always say, you know, it's a good thing to like escape, and it's a good way to just kind of kill time, and I'm like, I don't have time to kill. I don't. It's like I've got stuff that I'm doing, and and through some of my studies in grad school, one of my professors I admire and look up to a lot. He does a lot of his he's been a doctor for a million years, but a lot of his research is on film music. And I've always been like, movies are a waste of time. I don't have to be entertained 100% of the time. But then I'm like, man, some of the best music that's been composed in the last 100 years has been film score.
Yes.
So I'm doing myself a tremendous disservice. And I am also trying to get there. It being sort of coming to the end of marching band design season, I am going to have more time. But I got to do the same. And with, these super, super high quality Netflix series and Amazon and Hulu, all of these have wonderful storylines and everything, but the music is just Stranger Things. It's very evocative music because people are like, oh yeah, I remember that feeling I had when I heard that.
Synth wave.
Yeah.
Oh, they kickstarted that. Everyone's into it now.
16-bit sound. I'm all about it. But it's that's good. That's if. For anybody listening, if you were in that camp where movies and TV, that's a waste of time, it is not a waste of time. I have to pull myself out of that too. But I have all the streaming services. And this is another kind of a segue. I almost exclusively watched stand-up comedy and stuff about stand-up. So films and TV are art, but let's talk about comedy because it. What is your relationship to comedy and stand-up and that kind of stuff?
I actually grew up on Comedy Central, and I think that's just neglectful parents, really, because that's all I watched is they had those 30-minute stand-up specials in that same theater, Comedy Central Presents, and you get exposed to all these different jokes and stories and recognize some formulas that people use. So I grew up on that. Chappelle Show. So essentially, it was on Comedy Central all the time on the TV in my room. And it's really carried with me today because, prior to, getting back into the art of, movies and being... captured by shows and starting it and finishing it, I watched stand-up specials because it's just an hour of your time, or 50 minutes of your time.
Exactly.
You just watch it and you're done. And the funny thing about that is you can go down the rabbit hole of that and end up wasting an entire day watching stand-up specials because it's like, oh, if you watch this, you're gonna love this, and we're not gonna give you the option to click on it because it's starting right now. And So and just I guess being non-committal, but you wanting to laugh, wanting to experience that something funny, is something that I did and grew up on, and I think it developed my personality a bit too. I guess to want to be funny. I dabble here and there. If you know me on Facebook, I just post jokes. I don't give you life updates or anything like that. Sometimes it's the band stuff every now and then, but it's just like, oh, here's this stupid joke that I came up with. Here you go. And then some people like it. Sometimes it falls flat, but that's really the platform I use it for. Done a little bit of stand up. I did that once in college as like an open mic with my organization, and it went all right. you just have like this cluster of like different kinds of jokes. I haven't nailed down like what I would be. Are you a dark comedian? Are you someone who's stupid? Are you what are you? What are you? You know, are you going to be analytical about everything? But even most recently, there was an open mic at Southern Star, and I was like, I think I got some bits, you know, just go up there and do it. And the very funny thing about that is it's an open mic, and the person hosting it was he had just gotten off the stage with his band, and I had placed my name on the list, and he was like, all right, man, so do you need a guitarist? Do you need someone you play with? Do you need a drummer? I'm like, no, it's just me. Oh, so this is like spoken word. This is poetry. This is no stand-up comedy. And he's like, he just froze up for a little bit. He was like, I guess that is an art. It's like,
oh man,
it's just kind of, it's literally just going to be just you. You don't need anyone behind you, right? Like, no, just me telling little jokes, you know, observations about what's going on. It's like, all right. So I did it. You know, it was a pretty good set. It was a mixture of everything. You know, something topical, something stupid puns.
Sure.
Like, I mean, one of them was like, you know, I've been seeing a lot of like vegan stuff lately, and in my timeline, you know, they post these videos of like what they're doing to cows to get their milk. And it's you know, just ridiculous. And then I see what they do with almonds, and frankly, I think it's nuts. So it's you know, it's one of those. And then you have like, you know, full on stories or like experiences, and that's so it was a mixture of that. But all in all, it was a really good experience. Pretty, you know, warm vibe from the audience, though I don't know if they were expecting stand-up comedy or if they just wanted to listen to music, but it was just some people that were there on a Wednesday, you know, just drinking. So we'll see what develops from there. Maybe, you know, I'm like a jack of all trades. You do a little bit of music, you do a little bit of comedy. Do I jump into acting? I don't know. I don't know how to act. You've seen me before, especially after a few drinks. I don't know how to act. So, but we'll see where it takes me. But I mean, comedy's definitely like, you know, deep in my veins right now. Well, and has been, you know, my whole life.
Yeah. How long was that? How long was your set?
It was about 5 minutes. Okay. So I wouldn't even call it a tight five, just because that's the industry term, because it was still all over the place. It wasn't one that I would rely on, especially if it had topical events that are months and months ago. So but I mean, if I wanted to, you know, nail it down, and I feel like I say buckle down and nail it down like a lot, but you know, if I wanted to be serious about it, then maybe I could, you know, and have an actual, you know, type 5, and then build on that and have 10-15 minute sets, do some open mics, and then see what happens from there if you become an opener or what. But you also got to be mindful too about your employment and what funds this. So I'd be saying a lot of stuff like that stand-up set, dude, I dropped the F-bomb I feel like 30 times, okay? And maybe I could have cut back and made it 29 times, you know, or something, I don't know. But, you know, if there was a video of that's circulated around and my name's attached to it, you know, the person who pays you sees it, is like, we can't associate with you anymore because you say too many bad words, you know. It's like, you know, bye everything, you know. So I have to be very mindful of that as far as committing fully to that, because I'm not going to be happy if I have to be a clean comedian, you know. Yeah. So it's like, if the art has to be tailored to what if my job finds it, then what am I doing, you know? So I have to make that decision at some point, because even my current job doesn't know about the album. My last one did, and they just didn't care. They're a startup, you know. Yeah. This one's a little more established, and I don't know how they'd react to something like that. So they asked me, like, have you done anything in your free time? And I'm like, no, I don't do anything at all.
I saw O-rings.
I saw O-rings. That's about it. Glad to be here. I know that with my daily life, I'm more loose with, I guess,
curse words or bad words or whatever. And I don't consider myself to be necessarily a vulgar person, but if I drop something, it's not like, oh golly, it's shit, I dropped something. I do say golly a lot, but not when but I am always, I mean, I've been a teacher for a while, and when I was teaching full time, I was very cognizant of that stuff. Just being out, because I don't know, what if one of my parents, or one of my students' parents sees me? I'm like, oh. But the only couple of times I did ever run into parents was like at a bar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they were fine.
They were fine.
They were half in the bag by the time I got there, and I was saying, I was like, he's like, yeah, my kid sucks, and I'm like, no, it's fine. He's like, no, my kid sucks. It's fine. I'm like, all right, yeah, I agree. All right. But yeah, now I teach like real young ones, and I'm a little bit more present on social media. But I would feel the same way. Like if I went up somewhere, I wouldn't want to be like, which I think is probably why I haven't. I'm also kind of a pansy, but no, but that's cool, and I a lot of my personality is derived from. There's this one of my good friends from college. He actually lives right down the street. When we hang out, it's almost always just a series of bits from stand-up. I actually at one point, golly, back in the like LimeWire and Kazaa days, I found this one seed that had all of the Comedy Central presents. It was like 4 days worth of stand-up comedy.
Oh my god!
And some of it from after it wasn't the presents anymore, but it was the same format. It was 32 minutes instead of 28 or something like that. Yeah. And I had all of these, and I realized like, oh man, Louis Black has 4 episodes on this. I'm like, cool. And so we would just sit there. I'd put it on a TV or on the computer speakers, and we'd just sit there and just laugh our asses off for just hours at a time. Now it's a little bit more sophisticated. We're like, you catch that new fancy Netflix special. Now we get full hours from all of our favorite comedians. But,
yeah, I remember LimeWire downloading Dane Cook and his Kool-Aid Man bit.
Oh, Dane Cook,
you glass bitch. And downloading those bits that were all part of this big special. Oh man, but yeah, Netflix. They have this effort where every week they're putting out a new stand-up comedian, which I like that there's more eyes on comedy. I don't know if it cheapens it a little bit because you're really saturating with comedians, but at the same time, more eyes are on people who maybe wouldn't have been discovered before.
Yeah, it's the same thing with music, because I've actually related this, because people that, any content creators, like your YouTube or Twitch people, they're able to support themselves and continue making content because it has stepped one step closer to the mainstream. You get paid for it. Yeah. I mean, and I think I was talking with Bradley the other day about it, and he was like, well, selling out just means that you've made money. Really? I mean, you're going to do something that means that you can pay your rent and put food in your face. Yeah. Selling out, I don't think is a bad thing. There have been a couple of times, I guess, where people have indicted an artist who changed their style because that's what the record label wanted, or that's what the fans wanted. I'm like, okay, there is a line you have to toe. But at the end of the day, if it's like, okay, you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna make $10,000 a year. If you tweak it this way, you're gonna make $150,000 a year. I'm like, how could you possibly say fault someone for that? And
you can't. Yeah.
I mean, my style, my artistic style as a performer and as a composer or a writer, it is heavily informed by what I think people will enjoy listening to, and indeed a lot of times what people will give me money for. That's not to say it's the only inspiration, but I think as an artist, that's part of my job. Yeah. If no one wants to listen to it, I'm getting into turn of the 20th century stuff here. If no one wants to listen to it, is it still worth it? Sure, some things, but if that's what you want to do for a job, someone's got to like it.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if you know A Day to Remember, but they were very different back in the day. Same with Bring Me the Horizon too, and they've really evolved their sound, and they've pissed off a lot of the old school fans. But at the same time, these people are signed to the same record label is 21 Pilots now, and they are making more money than they could have ever dreamed of playing at Java Jazz down the road. These 100, 200 person clubs. You're playing Revention Music Center. You're getting close to Toyota Center. You are making more money than you're making the money that you dreamed of making, but you stepped away from what you were originally. Yeah, that pisses off people, but at the end of the day, it's just yourself. So you have to pay your own bills, and you can't please everyone in doing that.
That's a good thing, I think, to keep in mind just about everything. If you can make yourself happy, share stuff with the people you care about, and then from there, it's kind of out of your control, really. Yeah, it's hard to kind of let that go, but do what you're going to do, and hopefully someone likes it. If not, keep doing it anyway.
Right.
So that's cool. I was like, I could talk comedy for just days and days and days and days.
Same.
Okay. How about ghosts?
Ghosts.
Let's get back to ghosts.
We're drifting into the ghosts.
The ghosts have been in the ether, figuratively and also figuratively.
You feel it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I feel it.
Or
is that the AC? I don't know.
It's that low level hum that's like.
Yes.
But what do you? Have you seen a ghost?
Have I seen it? No, I have experienced it. Yeah. I went to the Myrtles Plantation, in I think it's called St. Francisville, Louisiana.
That sounds like a ghost place.
Very off the beaten path. You drive into it, and all the trees just have like moss on them, and it's very downtrodden. You got angel statues that are like cracked. And what the? You feel it immediately. But actually stayed the night there at the Myrtles Plantation, and every room has a set of stories. Who died in this room, or how they died. There's a chandelier in the room, and this person hung themselves, and sometimes the chandelier just goes, it's like, okay, I'm trying to get a good night's rest, but, or like if there's a doll here, and you place it on the mantle, it's not going to be there when you wake up the next morning. It'll be across the room because one of the children played with it, something like that. Anyway, this property is like an amalgamation of everything fucked up. So it's like it's Indian burial ground. All right, you just moved the tombstones,
Yeah.
And then there's a slave plantation right after that too, and then all the fucked up energy that happens there, and then the deaths, and like one of the slaves had poisoned the children of the owners and killed them. What else? There was a lady that was waiting for her Civil War soldier husband to come back, and it's either he never did or he died on like the 7th step of the stairs or something like that. It was it's like all this negative energy. Anyway, it's pretty cold in the house. They've got it equipped with AC and all that. And I'm asleep, or no, actually I'm not asleep. I'm in the bed. It's nighttime, and you'll hear like how like when the AC switches on, you hear that outside, and then and then all that onomatopoeias here, and
it's an ASMR podcast,
right, all that. But anyway, the AC is blowing, but I'm not feeling any of it. It's just this heat around the bed. It's just incredibly hot, and so much time has like passed by. I feel like it's about 2 or 3 in the morning, and at the edge of the bed, the sheets just go up like this. Like you're, changing the sheets or something like that. I'm trying to like illustrate this to people that listen. What is the word for it? They fluff up a little. Yeah. They fluff up a little bit at the edge of the bed, and my toe gets yanked. Big toe, right foot, just yank. Okay, And, I sound crazy by saying okay, but and then right after, I feel 5 breaths on my forehead, humanly paced breaths, like yeah. So I wasn't going to open my eyes and see that, and have it haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. I just clenched up, sweating, and just stiff. And so yeah, I feel 5 breaths on my forehead, and I don't get any sleep that night. And then, I tell, the caretaker or whatever the next morning, they say, well, that is the lady who's waiting for her husband, and any male that sleeps in that bed, the same thing happens to them. She is up at your face trying to distinguish if you are her husband. And yeah, that's what the deal is there. So, I mean, I have my experience with that to confirm for me. Of course, I can tell people, and they're like, "You're fucking nuts." Check into the loony bin. One of those things. But I'm like, I have my experience for me. I was even apprehensive before. I'm like, do I really want to experience something? But I'm like, just go for it.
Yeah.
And see. And yeah, I believe it. What about you? Aside from like the presence in a room, happy or sad.
I think the most of the things are kind of visual, and actually there's something happening here in this house. I think just every once in a while, because there's a lot of lamps around here, because where I'm recording in a place that is vaguely a porch but sealed but not really. There's single pane windows and then bricks because it used to be outside.
Yeah.
But there's like no electricity, so I have basically everything running through one plug, and then with extension cords around the room. I can't believe it hasn't caught fire.
Yeah, I just wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I have when I'm working on something that's not on a screen that's kind of dim, I will turn all the lamps off and chill on my couch futon thing. And I've got like these Christmas lights. And I'll look up, and they're actually plugged into kind of their own thing. They're not in this insane amalgamation of terrible fire code hazards. They're plugged into a plug in the other room actually, but like I'll just look up and they'll just be flickering like crazy, just like a lot of flickering, and I'm like, what? And it always comes with thoughts. It's like right after thoughts of, I'll take a rest from my project. I'll be like thinking like, what do I want to do with my life? It's always after some sort of deep thought, and I look up and I'm like, what is that trying to tell me? What should I do with my life? Should I be an electrician? Should I manufacture small plastic LED things? Or so I don't know. That's here, and I definitely feel like when I find myself not in the middle of a sort of purposeful thought, when I'm just kind of drifting. I feel things, pass by, or, I'll see something and I'll be like, that's not how that would normally float in the AC breeze or something. And some of it is, and the reason I think a lot of that is actually about 10 years ago, my dad was living here and he passed away. And I think that he's probably haunting this house.
Yeah. Would you even say haunting, or his presence still is here?
Yeah, I think he's he's still here in a lot of ways. He wanted me to go to the military, and I'm like, Dad, I don't want to go in the Marines Corps because I don't like fighting.
Right.
And I told him, I was like, well, I want to do music, and he's like, no. Okay. So I did it anyway.
Right, yeah.
But I think that's part of it. I think that is. I think it's kind of cool because if there is some sort of afterlife, or if there is such a thing as a supernatural intervention where there's spirits or ghosts, if he's still here watching, like he's seeing me be successful. Like I feel like I've achieved some success and some renown at what I'm doing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not a E5 in the Marine Corps, but I've got my own podcast. I'm teaching. I'm making young people's lives better. I'm a composer. I've got my own business. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's fun to think about. Mm-hmm. I don't think that I want to come to any conclusions on whether or not there is some sort of ghost or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think if there is, awesome.
Yeah.
Those people that have passed from what we know are still getting to see this, if that is true.
Yeah.
And if not, it doesn't matter at all. Right. It doesn't. It could not matter any less because I think also in a lot of ways, if we're still thinking about people or talking about people, they're there as much as they can be.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
And for there to be something to experience, I think is be it perceived or real, what is reality, other than perception. So. Right. But yeah, that's always fun to think about. That has actually inspired me a couple of times. Because sitting over there at the piano, I'll if I'm just kind of playing some chords or something, and I notice something, I'll look over, or some dust or lint or hair or something will fall into a key, and I'm like, meh. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's like, that just clearly doesn't fit. But sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's a new. Oh, it wants me to build a seventh chord off of it. Okay.
Wow.
It has actually come down to that. Like, and some of it is I just need to dust my place, probably, but
maybe not. Keep it dirty. Like, get your inspiration from there.
And give them their Etch-a-Sketch to play with. But are you so? I'm trying to think of. I plug my stuff all the time. Do you have anything? I'm gonna link to the album. See if I can get you a couple more.
Oh, okay.
Anything else going on?
Yeah, I've got a couple songs I can throw your way. But yeah. So there's the album. There's my Facebook page, facebook.com/Alex Amadeus Music, and I actually put music instead of metal because I'm like, let's leave it open.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I got you.
See what's gonna happen.
Wait for that country record.
Yeah. Yeah. The country. Oh yeah, maybe. Bandcamp, it's alexamadeus.bandcamp.com, and the album is $5 there. So it's you can also stream it too if you don't want to buy it. But I'm on Spotify as well. Alex Amadeus. Just type it in, and I'll be there with all my instruments in that one picture.
Yeah, I love that. That's the best background.
Thanks, man. I mean, that was a big inspiration to actually do it. It was like you got the mic around your neck, you got the bass, the guitar. Oh, and you're holding the drumsticks in each of them. Yeah, right there. So as far as other plugs, I think that's really. Oh, I have a Twitter. Do I talk about the Twitter?
You didn't talk about the Twitter.
I haven't talked about the Twitter. Is unhinged. Twitter is 100% me, and I think that's maybe more comedian me who plugs my music every now and then. Greek_Steel. So that's my Twitter too. If you work with me, don't go there. You didn't hear this. Maybe I don't work there anymore after you have heard this. I don't know. But that's everywhere you can find me. Just type Alex Amadeus and whatever pops up. Definitely not LinkedIn, but yeah, Facebook, Twitter, Bandcamp. That's about it.
Right on. Well, we've covered a lot. I think this is probably the most breadth we've gone over, so appreciate that, man.
Oh yeah, thanks for this. Has been refreshing, really. Sit down with a friend, and get to know each other more, especially music and even beyond that.
Yeah, so we haven't really talked much other than at Zero Detail shows where we're both kind of a little
something. But when we went out and had drinks, for 3 hours, last week. Yeah, that was really fun, and you're a great character, and I'm not creeped out or anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we haven't got to the second half yet. So no, and thanks for coming on, and y'all follow and listen and enjoy Alex's output. He's a good dude.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.